Evan never thought his freedom would end with the stroke of a pen. Yet here he was, signing his name on a contract that declared him the propertino, the mate of a man he had never met. Marriage was supposed to be about love, not about bloodlines and corporate alliances. But in America, in families like his, an Omega rarely got to choose. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but his throat tightened. Laughter would have turned into a sob anyway. The alpha waiting for him was Adrian Hale, the sole heir to the Hale Corporation, a man whispered about in hushed tones in New York's upper social circles. Ruthless, cold, untouchable. Evan had heard stories that painted him as both a monster and a savior, a contradiction wrapped in a handsome, unapproachable shell. And now, fate or rather his family's greed had tied Evan to that man for life. The limousine ride to the Hale penthouse was suffocating. His mother sat opposite him, her pearls glinting in the dim light, her face set like marble. She hadn't looked at him once since the papers were signed. To her, Evan was no longer her son. He was an investment. "Sit straight," she said, her voice crisp, cutting through the silence. "You represent us now." Evan's hands curled into fists in his lap, nails biting into his palms. "Represent us." The phrase clawed at his chest, tearing away at the boy who once dreamed of writing novels, of running along the beach without worrying about pheromones or dominance or the cage of expectations. By the time the car rolled to a stop in front of the glass tower, Evan's heart was beating so violently he thought it might tear itself free. The doors opened, and the air shifted. He felt it before he even saw him, that unmistakable pull, the gravity of an alpha presence. Strong, commanding, magnetic. His body tensed, his Omega instincts betraying him. Adrian Hale stood at the entrance, backlit by the glow of the skyscraper. Tall, sharp-featured, dark hair falling carelessly across his forehead. His suit immaculate as though it were part of his very being. His eyes, glacial blue, locked onto Evan's, and the world around them seemed to tilt. "Evan," Adrian said, voice smooth yet carrying an undercurrent of authority. He didn't extend a hand, didn't smile. He simply observed, as though weighing Evan on invisible scales. Evan swallowed hard. "Adrian." His own voice cracked slightly, and he hated the way it betrayed him. Adrian's gaze softened for just a fraction of a second, almost imperceptible, before his mask slipped back into place. He turned sharply, motioning for Evan to follow. "Come. We have much to discuss." The penthouse was a world of steel and glass, cold perfection that mirrored its owner. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sweeping view of Manhattan, the city glittering beneath them like a promise and a threat. Evan trailed behind Adrian, each step feeling heavier than the last. Finally, Adrian stopped near the window, hands in his pockets, his reflection merging with the skyline. "I'll be blunt. This marriage is not my choice any more than it is yours. But it will serve its purpose." Evan stiffened. He expected cruelty, maybe disdain, but not this calm detachment. "And what purpose would that be?" he asked, his voice trembling with defiance he didn't know he had. Adrian turned, his eyes piercing straight into Evan's soul. "Power, protection, survival. Our families believe in bloodlines and contracts, not in love. I won't lie to you with false promises. But know this." His steps closed the distance between them until Evan could feel the alpha's warmth seeping into his skin. "As long as you are mine, I will not let anyone harm you." The words hit Evan like a thunderclap. Possession, yes, but also protection. It shouldn't have mattered. It shouldn't have meant anything. Yet something inside him ached at the sincerity buried beneath Adrian's commanding tone. Their eyes lingered, a battlefield of fear and longing, dominance and surrender. The bond between Alpha and Omega hummed faintly in the air, unfinished yet undeniable. Evan tore his gaze away, whispering, "I didn't ask for this." Adrian's voice dropped lower, almost tender. "Neither did I." For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the city below. And in that silence, a fragile truth settled two strangers bound by chains they hadn't forged, standing at the edge of something neither fully understood. Evan's life had been stolen from him, reshaped into something unrecognizable. But for the first time since signing that cursed contract, he felt a flicker of something dangerous, something he couldn't afford hope. Evan had once believed that fate was nothing more than a cruel joke played on Omegas like him. But now, standing on the balcony of the Hale penthouse with Adrian's hand clasped firmly in his, he realized that fate had been leading him here all along, not to chains, but to freedom disguised as surrender. The storm that had almost torn them apart had finally passed. Betrayals had surfaced, secrets had burned, and bloodlines had threatened to drown them both. Yet in the end, it was not power or contracts that held them together, it was choice. Their choice. Adrian had stood against his father's empire for Evan. He had risked reputation, wealth, and even his life to shield him. And Evan, fragile as he once thought himself to be, had stood beside Adrian, no longer just the Omega forced into a marriage but the partner who chose to fight. "You could still leave," Evan whispered softly, the city's hum filling the space between them. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with the raw truth of offering freedom. Adrian's fingers tightened around his. "And go where, Evan? Anywhere without you would feel like exile." The words disarmed Evan, unraveling every wall he had built to protect himself. He turned, hazel eyes meeting Adrian's, and for the first time since their lives had been entwined, he smiled without bitterness. "I hated you once," Evan admitted, his voice breaking into the night air. "I thought you were nothing more than another alpha who wanted to own me. But you never did. You held me, yes. You claimed me, yes. But you never took away my voice. You gave it back." Adrian reached up, brushing a strand of hair from Evan's face, his touch reverent. "You are not mine because of a contract, Evan. You are mine because you chose to stay." And his voice faltered, rare vulnerability trembling in his tone. "I am yours in every way a man can be." The bond between them pulsed, not from the forced union their families had tried to orchestrate, but from something deeper, something real. Evan felt it in his chest, in the warmth flooding his veins, in the way Adrian's eyes no longer looked at him like a responsibility but as the center of his world. Evan leaned forward, pressing his forehead against Adrian's. "Then let's start over. No families, no contracts, just you and me." Adrian's breath hitched before he whispered, "Just us." The kiss that followed was not born of desperation or duty. It was slow, gentle, and devastatingly tender. Promise. A vow stronger than any written contract. Weeks turned into months. The world outside still whispered, still judged, still tried to bind them with expectations. But within the walls of their home, Evan and Adrian created something sacred. Mornings began with coffee and soft laughter, Evan scribbling ideas for his book while Adrian read the paper with his arm draped over Evan's shoulders. Nights ended with whispered conversations beneath tangled sheets, confessions spilling like secrets only the moon was meant to hear. Adrian still carried the weight of his family's empire, but with Evan by his side, it no longer felt like a burden. And Evan, once terrified of being caged, found himself freer than he had ever been because his freedom was not in solitude, but in the trust he placed in Adrian. There were arguments, of course. There were moments when scars from the past threatened to reopen. But each time, instead of breaking apart, they chose to fight their way back to one another. Love, Evan learned, was not the absence of pain but the decision to heal together. One night, as the city glittered below them, Adrian pulled Evan close and said, "Marriages built on power fall apart, but ours was rebuilt with love." Evan looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "Then it's unbreakable." And as Adrian kissed him beneath the endless sky, Evan knew that even in a world of contracts, politics, and expectations, they had written their own ending. Not tragedy, not survival, but love. Evan never thought he would thank fate for anything. But as he lay in Adrian's arms, the steady rhythm of his alpha's heartbeat beneath his ear, he whispered a truth that felt like the purest prayer. "I'm home." And for the first time in his life, he meant it. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.